Good morning. Welcome to the ACT conference. Thank you for selecting this workshop. This workshop session is called Systems Approach to Transformative Family, School, and Community Engagement, lifting the voices of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color families. We want to let you know that this workshop will be recorded. I am pleased to introduce our speakers, Diana Levy, Jason Arenas, and later Tammy Rossell. Um, they will be your facilitators for this session. We will be dropping the workshop evaluation into the chat in a few minutes before the workshop concludes. And Jason, yay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Catherine, for that introduction. Good morning to everyone from wherever you are logging in virtually. Really appreciate you taking time today to engage with us in a conversation around how we can reimagine and look at the ways we are engaging families and communities, specifically our BIPOC families, our Black, Indigenous, and other people of color in the work we're doing. So I'm really grateful to be with you all. I will be, just for some formalities, I will be kind of managing our deck as we are sharing this space and presenting amongst the three of us, myself, Diana, also known as Mama D, and Tammy. So if you could all give us a little grace and patience, hopefully we do not have any issues with connectivity, as we all are kind of managing that right now. But we're going to give folks about 1 more minute before we launch in. It looks like we're still admitting some folks, so just take a minute to yourself and then we'll get going soon. All right, everyone. So we're going to get started. Just a process check. If folks can give me a thumbs up, either in the chat or with your reactions, if you are able to see my screen. Okay, awesome. All right. So again, if you chose the Systems Approach to Transformative Family, School, and Community Engagement workshop, you are in the right space. If not, we welcome you regardless. As Catherine already stated, I'm Jason Arenas. I represent the Alameda County Office of Education. I'm a servant of the people of Alameda County, our students, families, and educators. I'm here with my amazing mentor, colleague, and good friend, Diana Levy, also known as Mama D, and Tammy Roselle, amazing parent leader that has been part of some really impactful work in Hayward Unified that you all will get to hear from. So I will move us on to the next slide. So today's presentation has some pretty big objectives, but we really are just trying to have a conversation and share some real great stories about this partnership that I've been really blessed to have with Mama D and her leadership in Hayward Unified. Now over 5 years, our hope is to share some specific liberating practices and strategies so you all can potentially use to engage families in meaningful spaces virtually or in person. You will definitely hear stories about the work that has been done in Hayward Unified and others that I will lift up in our county, really around how we can lift up and create spaces of power for families to be able to be those community leaders, not just outside of schools, but within schools. And we also are gonna, share and unpack some innovative and culturally responsive strategies as it relates to integrating family and school partnership work into your system. Oh, sorry about that. My apologies, my arrow button got stuck. All right. So just briefly, our agenda today, we're going to do a connection activity. We've already welcomed you all. We're going to do a brief overview of the county, district, and community partnership between the Alameda County Office of Education, Hayward Unified, and schools within Hayward Unified. You'll get to hear about the African American Student Achievement Initiative, which is an amazing initiative and body of work in Hayward Unified over a decade of real powerful family school community partnership. And you'll get to hear a specific story around the work that Mama D and Tammy have done with other parents to really lift up those voices and create centers of power amongst families in Hayward Unified. And then we're going to close with some Q&A for you all. All right, I'm going to pass it on to Mama D for this next couple slides.
Good morning, everyone. It's kind of nerve-wracking to be here. This is the first time I've actually co-presented in a virtual setting. So I'm just grateful that I don't have to do any of the behind the scenes, like next slide, that kind of thing, because I would probably totally screw it up. But I'm learning. So just very quickly, I want to go over some proposed norms for our hour together. And we use these norms in our meetings at the county office, at Alameda County Office of Ed. And they pretty much mirror the same kinds of norms that I've been using over the last 8 years with my acai families. And they are to stay engaged, always keep students and families at the center of our conversations, to expect and accept a lack of closure, which is way difficult for educators or any of us who are working with students and families, to feel like we haven't solved the problem is a difficult thing to go to bed at night. But we do it and we get up the next morning and we continue to work. And the last one is to step up and step back. And this one I take to mean step up and speak our truth, but step back in terms of listening to the truth of others. So what we'd like to do now, since we're all in this virtual setting, and according to what I'm looking at, there's 51 of us. Wow. I want you to take a moment and to think about what drew you to this particular session. Why did you sign up for this session? And please type your thoughts in the chat. What brought you here this morning? Mr. Green, I hope we can deliver for you the possible substance of the content given the topic and the title. All right, that's a challenge. We're going to definitely work our little butts off to do that. Uh-huh. School community partnerships are vital to student wellness, positive successes, outcomes, etc. The idea of transforming. Carmen. Hi, Carmen. That's one of my favorite words, is transforming. The work of anti-racism must be active, and I see this as an action towards that. Absolutely. All right, while you're continuing to put your thoughts in the chat, we will go on because we want to make sure we get as much of our content to you as possible. So throughout this presentation, since we only have an hour, we'd like you to also in the chat continue to put your burning questions. What questions are coming up for you as we are presenting our content this morning? And we're going to be monitoring this chat thanks to Catherine, and she'll let us know. She'll flag those things that she wants to make sure that we do our best to respond to during the presentation. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Jason.
Thank you so much, Mama D. One thing that I wanted to share with you all is this quote from Jose Rizal, who is a Filipino Mayan indigenous scholar from the 1800s, also writer, linguist, traveled the Americas, Europe, Asia, mastered 22 languages, and I feel like this quote speaks to me not just today, but every day. And the quote really states, "No history, no self. No history, no self." So I share that with you all because I actually observed many of you stating the indigenous land that you all are calling in from, which I really am humbled for that acknowledgement, and also want to lift up the importance of not just understanding our ancestors and those who fought and struggled and resist many factions of colonization to become, or to strive to become, liberated peoples and communities. That struggle continues, as we all know, or some of us have been able to be into that space of consciousness. But I also want to just really share this quote as an opportunity for us to not just know ourselves and the histories of our lived experience and how that sits within the communities that we serve, but also what are we doing to create dialogue and two-way communication, to know the communities that we serve, to know the students and families that we are building relationships and sometimes rebuilding trust or building trust with, and really wanting us to kind of push ourselves to create structures within our systems and practices that are actually around building this really strong stance of knowing their stories, of knowing their successes and the beauties of their lives, as well as the struggles and challenges that they have. So I share that all with you because we, the three of us, are actually zooming in from Alameda County, which is a extremely diverse population of folks that make up this county of 18 school districts and over 220,000 students, from the city of Albany to the small but mighty city of Mountain House in our rural part of the eastern part of our county. As I stated earlier, we are on Ohlone First Nation land, representing the rich history and strength and culture of those people who are still here and still kind of pushing in partnership with many others to really support and lift up the importance of the knowledge of those ancestors before us. We do also, for those that may not know, support the INFA program, which is a federally funded Indigenous First Nations program in our county. We also have a mission in Alameda County that I want to just briefly share with you all, which is to provide, promote, and support leadership and service to ensure the success of every child in every school and every day. And that's a pretty big task. In order to meet that mission, we have a vision. As a seamless unit, we lead, problem solve, and innovate. And we are going to be talking about what that looks like in practice and concretely, specifically around the partnership that I've been able to really be blessed to have with the leadership of Mama Diana and her work in Hayward Unified. So just building a little more context, this work didn't happen overnight. Within a year, within 2 years, we've had this partnership, even previous to me coming to Alameda County Office of Education in 2014-15 school year. But we really solidified this partnership, not just with Hayward Unified, but with 12 of our 18 school districts to create a specific learning community around, sorry about that, around family and community engagement and the importance of understanding the research, understanding the importance of place and context, and understanding the importance of leading this work with a social justice and racial equity lens. This work has been some really long days and weeks of problem solving, of exploration, of reimagining what a school system can look like, what schools could look like, to really center the experiences of families and really acknowledge them as problem solvers and not problems. So we're going to be talking quite a bit about that. Another big piece of our network is this idea to lift up, in essence, the amazing work happening at the hyper local level in schools, in specific classrooms, and sharing those kind of nuggets of ideas and best practices with others across the county so that we can kind of collectively create some repositories of best practices within our system. We've been able to partner with higher education institutions like San Diego State Parent Resource Center. We've been able to partner with the local and state PTA. We've been able to partner with many community organizations like Barrier Parent Leadership Action Network and the Village Method that are really unapologetically focused on supporting Black and Indigenous and people of color within our county. And I feel like that is the strength of our network, really, the diversity of perspectives and the diversity of the leadership in our county. So there are a few frameworks that we use that I just want to center in our conversation so you all know where we're coming from. One of those is the dual capacity building framework, which really encapsulates many decades of research, really focused on an amazing friend and colleague of mine, Dr. Karen Mack from the Harvard College of Education, that really is a guide for us to really think about how we could identify the outcome of effective partnerships that support student and school improvement as part of meeting that really big task, identifying what is the challenge for educators, those in the classroom, those at the district level, from paraprofessionals to teachers to school administrators to student services, expanded learning. What are the capacities of families? The challenges of families, and really focusing on these big buckets of what are the essential conditions. In essence, what is the kind of the ocean that us are kind of we're navigating in the spaces we're navigating? What do we need in order to be able to get to that outcome? How do we build specifically relational mutual trust? How are we linking our work to learning and development? How are we having an asset-based lens? How are we creating programs, practice, and policies that are culturally responsive and respective? How are we creating collaborative spaces? And how are we really creating interactive opportunities? These are some of the process conditions that we'll unpack today, and I won't go through all these pieces, but I did want to highlight that because we will be talking about specific and concrete examples of that within the work that Mama D and Tammy as a parent leader have been really lifting up and using as a guide. Another framework that we're using within the social emotional learning department is one centered around um, how we integrate social emotional learning, educational equity, with a real focus on not pathologizing our families and students and using just their trauma as kind of a representation of who they are and what they can become, but really looking at healing informed practices that understands the trauma that the students and families are really living within, and exploring cultural healing spaces and cultural practices that many of our families have passed on from generation to generation. And we'll be sharing a little bit about that. Also, the importance of looking at families, again, not as problems or individuals that have deficits, but really looking at families as being the assets and actually the problem solvers that actually have amazing strengths, have withstood amazing, or challenging living circumstances, and really what tools and everyday practical things have they used to be able to support themselves, their children, and their community. Lastly, I want to share the idea of, we take in our network really this work as a collectivist approach, not an individual approach of me or Mama D or Tammy being the one all be all of leading the important work of creating the conditions for authentic family, school, and community partnerships. The idea that we've built, or the theory that we've really built upon, is this idea of looking at the ecology of all the touch points that children and families are having within their school, within the classroom, in their home and neighborhood, and with extended families and community resources. I share this with you all because it's been an important framing for us to really use in order to really see the importance of, when children are learning, they're not learning in one location. When children are learning, they're learning in multiple locations through multiple perspectives from many people. Um, Actually, the research is showing that children learn about 10,000 hours in a week in their home or community, which is actually a higher number than they're actually learning within the school. So just wanting to share that nugget of information, because for me, that opened my eyes. And also, when we talk about learning spaces, I really want us to push and challenge that learning spaces can be everything from having conversations in a barbershop, mentorships being built, to having conversations and building community and sharing cultural practices within spaces in the library, within community organizations, within the laundromats. Learning is happening everywhere and is around us, and we know that as educators. And the last thing I just want to share before I pass it to Mama Diana is really this idea of moving from a transactional to transformational engagement. So what I mean by that is, we really are best suited to support families and see families and caretakers as partners of equal power, as experts of their children and communities, and again, as problem solvers and not problems to be solved. Those sometimes seem to be easier said than done, but we strongly feel and have seen a lot of evidence that when you center relationships and building or rebuilding trust, that is those are one of the many conditions, as I shared earlier in the dual capacity framework, to be able to get to this point. Obviously, there's a lot of work that has to be done within the heart, beliefs, and values of individuals to actually see these families that we are serving as equal partners. There's a lot of work within our institutions across all levels of leadership as well, in order to be able to see families as experts in of their children's experience and learning. So I just share some transactional versus transformational engagement practices. So one I really want to lift up is this idea of, we many of times are asked to have families attend meetings or events, and probably even more so now. And that is really an entry point for some, but for many can be a barrier, right? And we have to really rethink when we talk about engaging families. Do we want to get something from them, or do we want to really build a better understanding to how we can support them in this idea of involving them as an act of just doing for them, or are we doing it with them, right? So are we actually walking them through, some of the curriculum and exploring ways that they could use their living learning spaces as ways of connecting that to real life, opportunities for young people to learn? Are we building on the assets of them as community leaders, as actually identifying those as leadership traits to build opportunities for them within our advisory committees or other governance structures? And lastly, are we co-creating these two-way communications that are centered on ways that they communicate, not the ways that we want families to communicate, or that's best serving for the educational institution, whether district or school? So I know I shared a lot, but we really wanted to share this framing, and I'm going to pass it on to Mama Diana to really unpack what this really looks like concretely in Hayward Unified.
Jason, before we do, I don't want to lose Greg Sheehan's question, which is, could you elaborate on the 10,000 hours comment? I don't think I heard it correctly.
Yes, so research from Harvard Graduate School of Education and the Annenberg Institute has been able to look at all the learning, the time that young people are learning, and that the 10,000 hours is the amount of learning time that's happening outside of classrooms within a week.
All right, thank you. So Jason, thank you for putting me into intellectual quadrant of the compass. Okay, my head is all into the intellectual quadrant. I'm gonna hope to bring folks into some of the other quadrants. And what I'm gonna share with you is tiny little bit about Hayward, in case you don't know where we are. We are considered the heart of the Bay, and we are in Alameda County and the East Bay subregion of San Francisco Bay Area. This census data is from 2014. I'm sure we have more than 149,000 folks in Hayward at this point. Next slide. As a district, Hayward Unified School District, our vision statement is students will be prepared, challenged, and motivated in a 21st century learning environment that develops the physical, intellectual, and emotional success of all learners. I'm looking at this vision statement right now, probably closer than I have in a while, and I'm already thinking there's some things we need to work on that vision statement a little bit, especially in terms of racial equity and social justice, and being a anti-racist district, which we just had a board policy that acai worked on in collaboration with a board member to actually develop two new policies. One that's on equity, race and equity, and the second policy is an anti-racism policy. So this vision statement needs to be brought in alignment with the new policies. Nevertheless, you can see a little bit about our metrics. Our ELL population is the largest population in our district. I think it's probably hitting closely on 70% or higher. So you could say, a lot of folks in Hayward like to say that they are a suburban district, but they truly are an urban district. And we just need to keep reminding them of that. So next slide. Now I want to talk just a little bit about acai. Acai stands for the African American Student Achievement Initiative. We're going into our 8th year. I actually came out of retirement to lead this work. And the reason why I came out of retirement to lead this work is because I wanted to make it clear that this is a movement that unapologetically focused on Black students, their families, and the communities that nurture and support them. So whenever I'm at the table, I do not have to say, I don't have to address anything other than Black students. That's my reason for being there. Am I aware of what's happening with other students? Have I other families and students? Absolutely. Do I work across lines with other communities like our English learners community? Absolutely. But I'm there to be the voice at the table for Black students. And I have worked diligently, and I hope Tammy speaks to this, I'm sure she will, that as our acai parents have become more engaged and more skillful at going into rooms where they may well be the only Black person in the room, to basically ask the question, so what about the Black students? So I'll let you read a little bit about our history yourself. What I do want to point out is our 4 priority areas, and these have been our priority areas since the very beginning. Reducing the opportunity gap. When we first started, we used the antiquated language of the achievement gap. It's an opportunity gap. Implementing culturally and linguistic pedagogy throughout our schools, reducing suspensions and expulsions, because like many of our districts, was way disproportionately Black students were being suspended and expulsions. And we take the position that the minute a Black student is not in their regularly assigned classroom, they are being suspended. So these buddy classrooms, detention rooms, all those other kind of structural ways that we in fact take away a student's ability to learn is considered a suspension by acai. And of course, strengthening the school and family relationships. So I'm going to just move through, because I think much of this, because of time, you can read on your own, because I really want to get to Tammy's. The next part has to do with how we built school and leadership capacity. Acai is structured similarly to probably most of your ELAC, DLACs are structured, in that we have a district parent leadership team that meets monthly. And then each school site should have, notice I said should have, a local site team. And this is where our work has been the most challenging, is to get those local site teams going. And Tammy will share some of her stories around getting that site team working. We have annual events that truly bring our community together. Our biggest is our district-wide Kwanzaa that became district-wide about 3 years ago. Last year it was standing room only, and it was amazing. We have that right before we go off on winter break. And then in February, we do not consider or embrace the idea of Black History Month. We take the position that Black history is from January 1st to December 31st. However, we have taken February and we use the term Black to School Month. And we focus on February with having our Black families come back to school and be in the schools, shadow their kids for a day, have activities at their school. And some of the schools, like Hayward High School, has done an amazing job with their Black to School week, which is in the middle of February, and they have a Black to School day. And they actually open up the campus to Black families so that parents can come, shadow for the day. They have students who work as tour guides throughout the school. Teachers open up their classrooms so that parents can sit in and see the instruction that's going on. It's an amazing opportunity for our Black families to come back to school and show up Black at school. Those are our annual events. So next slide, Jace. Okay, we're moving on to Tammy. A big piece of our work is around collective voice and advocacy. And my favorite phrase, because I just love the musical Hamilton. I'm always singing the song from Being in the Room Where It Happens. So my challenge to my families is you must be in the room where it happens. If you are not in the room where it happens, meaning where decisions are being made, where really tough conversations are happening, then your voice isn't going to be heard and you have no input. And you cannot complain about the decisions that are made, the results that are made, if you haven't been in the room where it happens. Whether you have a vote or not, be in that room. So these are some of the ways in which we have acai parents now in the room where it happens. They serve on the school site councils, they're PTA, they serve on the district advisory committee. They attend school board meetings, and we attend school board meetings not necessarily to have something on the agenda that we want to speak to, although we're very well prepared to do that, but just to watch, just to learn more about how school boards work. We also are ready at any point, as I said earlier, to ask the tough questions, to not just go along with what people are saying, but to dig deeper into the thinking and to force people to reflect on their own thinking and looking at how systems are working together. As a result of our advocacy in November of 2017, the board passed a resolution that is in support of, it's very long-winded, but it speaks to acknowledging the perpetuation of systemic racism and how that has impacted and diminished the capacity of our Black students to achieve to the level in which they are more than capable of doing. So we have a board policy, and as I said earlier, we just had our race and equity and anti-racism policies adopted by the board. Next slide. Okay, some of the other ways that our families are supported, we have parent ambassadors in our district in terms of our systemic approach. The parent ambassadors, this year there are 73 of them. They represent 98% of the schools, and this year we have the highest number of African-American Black families on the parent ambassadors, including 4 Black males, which I'm ecstatic about, Black males that are serving as parent ambassadors. We also have family engagement specialists, which is a direct result of the advocacy on part of our families, because some schools had family engagement outreach workers. Some consider them community liaisons, and some did not. So as a result of advocacy and lobbying, now every school has a family engagement specialist, if not full-time, at least 15 hours a week. And we also have Tuesday night parent power sessions that are designed from our family support department. And we have SEL mindfulness, Friday family classes, just a variety of things. The Friday night classes are amazing, and there's a line, a waiting list to get into those Friday night classes, all around the 2-generational approach, students and families learning together. And now, a real treat for you. I'm going to let you come into the world of Tammy Roselle. I wrote this for her, and I told her, I hope I did her halfway the justice that she deserves. Tammy's a fierce parent advocate and educator who has worked tirelessly and unapologetically on behalf of Black students and the families and communities that nurture and support them. She's a mother of 7 children, a 1st grader, an 8th grader, a 10th grader, a 12th grader, and 3 post-secondary kids. She has been an acai family leader since the inception. And she most recently competed for one of the 3 open seats for the HUSD Board of Ed. Although she came in 5th, she ran a competitive campaign, and with extremely limited resources, she came in 5th. In fact, she came in above an incumbent on the board. So Tammy's her her story is one of courage, resilience, passion, and strength. And Tammy, I'm going to turn it over to you, my dear.
Thank you, Mama Diana. Can everyone hear me okay? As Mama D said, my name is Tammy Rosell, and I have been with Acai since the moment that I heard about it. I came in with my oldest son and an infant on my hip to hear about what was happening in our district and how I could be a part of it. For me, I remember the very first push. I was officially, Mama Diana, you probably didn't know it, I was officially supposed to be on bed rest. But being an advocate for my children, I had to come to see how I could make their future better. Because for me, children are the message that you send into the future when you can't be there. And I wanted them to know, you know, I'm a teacher, my mom's a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, education was number one. So in our family, I had to make that push, and I'm so glad I did. It was the first push of many, and I will always remember walking through those doors with my little one on my hip, who we now refer to as my American Express, because many times she has been on my hip or on my side as I walk through the door. She's everywhere that I want to be, right? So um, I again started with Acai from the beginning and at the district level. And then in about 2015, I heard that it was coming to the elementary school that I had been at. And so that's where I met Sarah Prada. She was doing the push and organizing for the parents there. And Sarah is a key person because that's when advocacy for me became strong, because before that I had been a mom at home, just baking cookies and happily attending to the kids and what my kids needed. But Sarah came to me and she asked if there were any issues with my children, because she was having racial issues with her children, and our children, what they shared in common were they were both biracial. Her children were Black and Colombian, and my children, well, they are lots of ethnicities, but I have Black and Afghani, Black and Japanese, Black and Mexican, and my American Express is Black and Black. But we touched bases and found that the children were really struggling, and her children were being called the N word. She said to check with yours and see. And my children said they weren't, but it's a big problem, Mom. You really need to check into it. So it kicked into gear because my older kids had gone through this school and graduated. And my granddaughter was now coming in, and I was like, how can this still be a problem? I have to do something about it. And so I got deeply involved in Acai at the school site, which just became one of the biggest fights for my life. Just, I didn't understand education not working the way that it was supposed to, and the system not working the way that it was supposed to for children that looked like me or didn't look like, for just children in general. And so we sat down, and the first year I kind of observed what was happening. I was so excited. I won a t-shirt, and that kind of drew me in. And it was like being superheroes for our kids. And that next year I sat down over the summer and I thought about it. I was like, we need to come in with a game plan, because what we've done in the past has not worked. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. So I went in with a new game plan. We all sat together and we came with a list of everything that we wanted to see happen for the year. And that was the beginning of the one of the ideas that came out of that was the Black Grad Night, which this will now be my 4th year with the Black Grad Night. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But we had an African American, now I'm trying to think of what it was, but it was like a history day where everyone came in, and we had, my family owns an African American history awareness museum. And so my family's museum came, and I portrayed people in history like Pharaoh Hatshepsut, Sir Joyner Truth, Mary McLeod Bethune. And so the children learned a lesson, and I was even allowed to come into a classroom and teach. And I recreated the Harlem Renaissance in one classroom, and the children came up with amazing ideas, and they presented those ideas. So from there, you know, we went back to the admins, and we wanted this to be a constant thing. And the admins just were like, no, we don't want this. I sat in on school site council, and I was trying to advocate for children that look like me. And they were like, well, that's not what our school looks like. We don't want to give the money to you. So it's just been a constant pushback, you know, and I push forward and they push back, you know. And so I've just in that they wanted me to be quiet. And as I say, they were trying to mute my justice, trying to get justice for these kids that they were suspending. And I was calling them out when I would see them, and like, that child's suspended. I know you didn't write him in your numbers. That child's suspended. What are you doing to Johnny? So I began to form a group that I called Hope, which was helping our people excel. And parents would call me and say, they're doing this to my kid. And I would come running, like, I'm jumping in my jeans right now. I'm on my way. So to help parents be able to speak up, hope was created. And we just got stronger and stronger. And I remember there was even a fishbowl where Sarah and I did the first, I think it was the first big cut into bringing the anti-racism, but we spoke out on our story. There was a slave game on campus and they were trying to make us be quiet because we brought it forward. And when we spoke there that night, that gave me the courage. Somehow I think that twisted whatever I thought I was going to do in life. You are now an advocate. And I remember someone coming to me and they said that was so powerful. I was in tears. I was trying to remain, just calm and okay. And so from there, I began to speak up more and more and become more involved in the community. And people would just call my phone like, I'm in trouble. Please come with me. Please help me. And of course, I know what it's like to be a parent that can't show up to the school or that can't go in or doesn't know the ropes. So with Acai, we continued. We even set up a parent advocacy meeting where we begin to teach parents the ropes, because it was kind of a hidden system that you fill out a uniform complaint form and then you get your needs seen to. Even I thought that the end all and be all was the principal. You talk to the principal and then it's done, it's solved, whatever they say. But I began to learn that there was more to this story. So Sarah and I kept pushing and holding hands and making these moments get bigger and bigger. And of course, I was involved on the DAC. I was chosen as the representative for the district advisory committee. And suddenly I was in a room by myself with the mayor and all of these people that didn't look like me or the children I was fighting for. And the first year, I remember being washed out. I was saying, we need African-American tutors for these students to, because 75% of our kids can't read. And then they were like, oh, that's nice. All students can read. And I remember I didn't like that feeling. And the next year when I came back, I said, I'm going to fight harder. And I did. And finally, I remember even in the strategic plan, the superintendent came in and he decided, I like that idea. I like that idea. I don't like anything else. You guys roll with what I said. And I remember having a meltdown that day because it was Cinco de Mayo weekend. And anyone that knows me knows I love to have a good time. And, just even me and my kids, we danced in the house. That's, I said, I gave up my whole day and you're not going to listen. And I remember that was the first time I stood up to the superintendent, was like, I'm not having this. And everyone stopped what they were doing. And then, even the mediator was like, this is not how it goes. Her point is valid. So I was like, oh, this is, I have to keep going. If I'm the only voice in the room, I have to keep standing up. I can't shut up. I can't sit down. And, it just started at first, I started out as Sarah's fight, but suddenly it was my fight for everyone, because I was in places that these people that looked like me could not be. And even when I realized, even when I started to struggle and go through, because my daughter went through something, I stood up for everyone. And in that moment, I went to the board and I told them something damaged my daughter to where she was going to drop out. And I remember holding her and I was saying, this is an educationally abusive relationship, but how can I change this for other kids and not just mine? My kids are going through, but I'm sure some mom can't stand up and say it. I'm sure some mom is just quiet somewhere and life is not okay. So I went before the board and I told them about themselves, which later an article was written about it. I guess people felt it was so powerful. A little bit of the speech is on YouTube, but I decided shortly after that I would run for school board, because I talked with Sarah. We went through a program for leaders in the area. We were chosen. And actually, they did a documentary on us. I don't know if Mama D knows this, but there's a documentary on us and our fight. And we decided to run for school board because of that meeting. We went in and I found out I had been lied to. And I just decided I'm going to change this for everybody. Even if I don't win, lose, or draw, I'm going to scare them and I'm going to make some rules change because I win or don't win. And Sarah said, yes, that is what's going to happen. We're going to run together. And we did. We both ran for school board and something amazing started happening. Even what was being said amongst the candidates started switching to what we were saying, right? Everyone's like, we're on board, we're on board. So many things were getting changed for our kids. And I was just like, yes, yes. Even I saw so many things. We sat down with a board member and had dinner with her. And she was saying that part of the anti-racist racism policy came out of that dinner that we sat down. We said, we want this, we want this. We just went down the list for like 2 hours. We held her hostage, but no, she was captively listening. She wrote down what we were saying and what was needed, and it was amazing. And we felt heard. And we still just, even running for school board, they were saying you were supposed to be quiet and sit back and listen. But we called in every school board meeting and we let them know, because there were still parents coming to us. And Why do we have to be quiet because we're running for school board? I know there's a certain way to behave, but when your future is at stake, when everything that you love, as I said in one of the meetings, the baby that I almost died on the table having is in trouble. I'm not gonna adhere to those political rules that, you know, I should do this or not do that. But I just kept going and kept pushing. And I did not win the race, but that's okay. We changed a lot of things. Sarah did win, and we do have representation. And that is amazing to me that we both went in and one of us got on. So our children and our community will never be the same. And I'm so proud of Sarah. I'm so proud of, you know, I'll even say myself. Usually I don't say that, but the thing that we've done together is so amazing, and the future will never look the same, never ever. And I am so grateful for that. Anyway, sorry, we've been we've been a part of, you know, the Kwanzaa celebration, and we've had so many things go on. And I wanted to say I did touch on the Black Grad Night, but I wanted to go back and say this year I did start a company called Fixing Crowns, and so the Black Grad Night will be citywide, and there is now a scholarship for one African American child that is a senior. And so thank you, Mama Diana, even for the chance to rise to this. I didn't even know. Had you asked me 5 or 6 years ago, would I ever have stood up for someone else? I would have told you no. I'm sorry, that's their problem. But the problem is mine. And I absolutely wholeheartedly take it on. And I am proud to fight for these babies with everything in me. They are all my babies. I am now a big mama, and I will fight with everything in me for the rest of my life.
Oh my God, Tammy. Oh, I don't know how the rest of you guys are feeling, but I'm overwhelmed. I knew Tammy was going to bring it, and yeah, my brain is just going 1,000, just. But I want to just say quickly that one of the things that Tammy did so amazingly is she touched on some of the things that Jason was sharing with you guys under Sharon Mapp's latest work, and she touched on what's called the 4 C's: capabilities, connections, cognition, and confidence. And without realizing it until just now, I think that has really ruled my thinking too, in terms of making sure that our families had the knowledge they needed, so that when they were the only one in the room where it was happening, they could speak with knowledge behind them. Uh, Building relationships, the connections piece, the cognition piece, which is believing in yourself and your values, holding firm to your values, and then the confidence, the self-efficacy. So I thank you. I cannot believe we only had an hour to share our story with you, but I'm hoping that we'll have other opportunities to do so. So I will turn it back over to Jason.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for sharing your story. Mama D, for just being that amazing individual leader, mentor for me and so many others. I'm a little challenged currently with this whole technology, so I hope that you all are able to see one of us. But I'm gonna, yeah, all right, exit full screen. We have a lot of big questions, and one thing that I want to just give us time is maybe lift up some of the questions, Catherine, that you've been able to collect. Not to give a answer or a quick response, but maybe an opportunity to have some type of discussion before we move and transition to the surveys.
Okay. This is for Mama D. One question is, well, first they said, this is so inspiring. What do you see as first steps for districts/schools that want to head in this direction?
First steps. I would say the first step would be to reach out to your community. I started just by having a meeting the first year of acai. I had it, and I got the list of families and tried to work with principals. That wasn't very successful because not all principals, some principals couldn't even identify a Black family that they felt I could get a parent from, and that like made me think like, what are you talking about? But I did start with a room full of families, just to share with them what the big picture was, and then to co-create with them how we wanted to see this happen. And that was in I think the 2013-14 school year. So I would start with bringing the families in, even if you only have 5 in the room, that's 5, and then build from there. And the entire time, you've got to be very intentional and focused on looking for other families, other parents, and site administrators who are co-conspirators with you in this work. I'm going into my 8th year. I keep telling them, I told them last year I was going to retire again, and they like said, "Oh no, you're not." And I didn't. I'm back again, and I don't know. I'll keep working at it until I can't get up in the morning, I suppose. But then I have Tammy and Sarah and all the others. So again, to just start with where you're at and move from that point, because it will take time. 7 is a number of completion. Last year was our 7th year, and we began to see some things coming together.
Okay, I have a lot of comments here in the chat, Tammy, if you don't see it, saying that you are an inspiration, that thanking you for your transparency, but for Mama D and Tammy, that everyone is hoping that you'll share your contact information. One person, Naomi, I'm sorry if I tear up your name, wants to know if they can contact you outside the workshop to consult about awesome work.
See, Tammy, I told you, girl. I told you you were going to become famous.
Tammy, you're awesome.
She's a rock star.
I want to be you when I grow up, I tell you.
Yes, we'll make sure. I think mine was in the very beginning, and with Tammy's permission, Jason will get her info out as well.
Also, there is the survey, the workshop survey. Please take an opportunity to fill that out. We have about 4 minutes left in this workshop. Any other questions?
If you want to know more about Acai, we do have our own, is it called a webpage? I guess it's on the district website. We have our own webpage on Acai. And of course, as we said, you can contact me and we'll get Tammy's information out to you as well. And just know that Tammy's one of probably, I would say 15. I have about 15 Tammys. She's a queen. Sarah's right there with her, who do this work in various ways in their schools as well. We're a mighty army. And as Tammy said, we ain't going nowhere. So thank you so much. I appreciate the time with you, and I look forward to meeting some of you in the real world in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Jason, you have any final thoughts?
You know, the only thing I want to share is just gratitude. Again, Mama D, as you know, you are an amazing human leader and mentor to me. And, you know, a lot of my own, you know, rethinking of what family school community partnerships could look like is really through the experience of the work we've done in our network. Tammy, just really grateful for you to speak your truth and share your story, because I know personally and professionally there's many families that are waiting for those opportunities. So, you know, I just urge you all as leaders in your systems to create those spaces for authentic leadership, to create those spaces for real family, school, and community partnership, because we need that to really reimagine our education system, because the system that's been set up has gotten us the inequitable outcomes. And it's our task and the task of those 7 generations ahead of us to be able to be part of this change. So I just thank you all. If you have any questions, again, reach out to the 3 of us. And for folks that really want to dig deep into how to create a learning community around this topic, feel free to reach out to me. Again, enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, we'll see everyone hopefully soon in person. Take care.
Thank you.